Can I see you a minute, please? Please.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Tuesday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Tuesday. Welcome. Welcome, 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 everybody. Quad Bennett. Heat, Conscious Canuck, the Raven OG. Welcome, everybody. I'm at the library, the kiddo is playing, and the Wi-Fi is free. Nice. Yes, indeed. Visit your local library. I think that's pretty cool. I just took the world's greatest code of business conduct course for the morale, sustainable, and fair operation of business today. I won't be able to reply until after 5:30. Well, that's only a few minutes from now. You'll be all right. Thank you. Happy to be here. Well, I appreciate that. Folks, we have a few things to cover today, and not enough time. I would say. Before we get started, of course, just a couple of things. Join the Discord if you haven't If you haven't done so already, if you haven't done so already, join the Discord every last Saturday of the month. There is a movie night if you want to join. It's completely free, so you are free to join the Discord. Check out the merch store if you're on the YouTube. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and of course, always spread the word. I appreciate it. I do appreciate the local libraries too. Alright, folks, we gotta get started.
Well, it seems like we've reached a bizarre point in American politics where the furthest right Republicans and Donald Trump have managed to, I guess, accidentally land on the same side of an issue as leftists like myself, albeit for very, very different reasons, mind you, but nonetheless, they are wanting an outcome that I also support, or at least they're saying that this is the outcome that they want when they're lying in actuality and just playing politics.
Yeah. Michael Hasser, welcome. Hope you're great. I'm hanging in there.
Let me try to explain. Basically, for months now, Democrats have been wanting funding for Ukraine, and Republicans have been saying no unless you give us something that you would never give us. Funding for the border. We want the wall, and we want more money for ICE. And they thought that they were calling the Democratic Party's bluff because, I mean, during an election year, it's inconceivable that Democrats would ever support something so barbaric and draconian when their own base wouldn't like that. But Democrats, unbeknownst to them, don't actually care about their base, and they said, you know what? Fine. We'll give you barbaric immigration crackdowns if you give us funding for Ukraine. And now Republicans are in this awkward position to where they're having to do this tap dance and be like, oh, actually, even though if you look at the bill, it's very brutal, it's still bad. It still allows for crossing. So we have to oppose it on principle, even though we said we would support what you wanted if you support what we wanted. It's very bizarre. But let me go back.
Yeah, because, like, just to be clear, like, if Republicans had the chance, this is the kind of stuff that they would do anyways, you know? This is exactly the kind of stuff that they would be supporting anyways. And it's absurd. It's absurd that the Democrats are deciding that the best course of action, here is to just do what the Republicans would do, right? And think that that's some kind of like W, right? The idea that like, you know, Republicans can't beat us on immigration because we'll outflank them on immigration. Bro, are you serious right now? I care, I do, but I have no power. I feel like a lot of us feel that way. Genocide Joe has got to go. Well, there is no lesser evil now.
Can give you some more context so you understand why they're coming from this position, aside from stupidity. Basically, Republicans for years now have been pretending that Biden has instituted an open border policy, even though he's arguably as cruel as Trump, minus the family separation policy. Although,
yeah, like I've been saying this for years, like the Biden immigration policy is not really, save for like a couple of things, the Biden immigration policy hasn't really changed much. Okay, like there was a couple of things here and there, but ultimately it's the same. And Republicans have somehow managed to conjure this open borders narrative out of nowhere.
he did consider detaining
just to appease their xenophobic base.
families at one point following the end of Title 42, which is a Trump-era policy that he used to justify deportations, but Biden also used that. But I mean, there's been no shortage of cruelty towards immigrants under the Biden administration. Remember the thousands of desperate Haitians that were brutalized by Border Patrol on horseback and subsequently deported? That happened under Joseph Biden. Yeah, but despite this ruthless approach towards immigration, Republicans haven't stopped pretending that he's just opened the borders. It's preposterous to me. So, I mean, you would think that Biden by now would recognize that they will never be appeased, regardless of how Trumpian he gets, because they're just opposed to everything that he does for partisan purposes.
Right, and it's absurd. It's really absurd that, to think that you are somehow going to win conservative voters. Because if that's the idea, that's just not gonna happen. Hey, the Simon Locker, they did the same thing with Obama when he was deporting more than anyone. Yeah, exactly. It's just the same, literally the same playbook every election year. Every election year that there's every election year against the Democratic candidate, it's always that the Democratic candidate has been president before. They drum up, this immigration. They manufacture this immigration crisis.
It's not about policy for them. But rather than acknowledging this and changing his approach, Biden is instead choosing to double down on his policy of appeasing fascists, which, if you look to history, it's always worked out really well. And I say this because he's supporting a bipartisan immigration bill that is so right-wing that even mainstream media pundits are calling it right-wing. As Sahil Kapoor of NBC News puts it, as recently as months ago, it was unthinkable that President Biden and Democrats would endorse an immigration bill like this without any of their priorities on Dreamers and legalization. The politics of this issue have shifted sharply to the right, with the asylum system overwhelmed.
Yeah, nothing like this. If you really want to understand what if you really want to understand what lefties mean by the ratchet effect, this is like a textbook, classic, picture perfect example of how this works.
And to make matters worse, guess what? The bill also includes funding for Israel's genocide in Gaza, to the tune of $14 billion, by the way, which means that Democrats who support this legislation are now to the right of Ronald Reagan on the issues of immigration and Israel-Palestine, which says a lot about the trajectory that we've been on as a country for a while now and should alarm all of us. Now, if you're a liberal who was outraged by Trump's cruel policies, this is going to make you outraged if you are morally consistent.
Yeah. Here's the problem, though. A lot of these people, okay, mind you, this is a lot of people on Twitter acting as if this is a perfectly acceptable strategy. Hello, person that has been banned in quite the amount of channels. We actually have millions of asylum cases backlogged. Okay? I don't understand what that point has to do with the topic at hand. But okay. Sorry. I don't understand what that comment has to do with regards to the arguments being put forth, I should say.
Democrat who supports this, they're just xenophobic, racist trash. But it's hard for Americans to know what's in it because it's a very long bill. So let me try to break it down for you and explain why this is something that the left is opposed to. As Politico explains, the bill would nearly double funding to ICE and give billions more to CBP. And on top of that, it would use money already allocated towards immigration to construct more walls on the border, i.e. Trump's border wall. And on top of that...
Yeah, if Trump would have literally put this legislation right now, these liberals would be outraged, right? supposedly. But like now these liberals are pretending that this is some kind of like 4D chess move by Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. It's wild. It's wild.
That it would distribute money to states dealing with an influx of migrants, which isn't necessarily bad, and it would also allocate $4 billion to citizenship and immigration services to speed up asylum claims, but also toughen asylum requirements and require asylum seekers to show proof that refuge in the U.S. is needed immediately. Otherwise, they get turned away. Now, it would also shut down the border entirely if crossings average 5,000 or exceed 8,500 per day. And this provision has confused a lot of people, but I think that Fox News correspondent Bill Malugin, who actually seems to support this, explains this provision in greater detail in a more fair way. So he writes this on Twitter, quote, "At 7-day rolling average of 5,000 encounters per day, or 8,500 encounters in a single day, DHS is required to shut the border down and turn away anyone who crosses."
Right, like, can you imagine? This is like Trump's like literal like this would be Trump's like wet dream in terms of policy. The ability to just like have the border automatically shut down, no new asylum, nothing.
No new asylum claims will be allowed, and anybody crossing will be removed. Would end the whole idea of, quote, "I made it to U.S. soil, you have to process me." That would be over. Border Patrol would not process the illegal crosser, and they would be removed. No asylum claim permitted unless it's made at a port of entry. This does not mean 5,000 are, quote, allowed in before this authority kicks in. Single adults would be detained, families would be released via ATD, alternatives to detention, and asylum cases would be fast-tracked to months rather than years under a new rapid/expedited expulsion system. Those who fail would be quickly removed from the U.S. Those who initially pass would be released with work authorization and 90-day supervision until final asylum claim is determined. The shutdown authority doesn't drop until crossings decrease significantly in the days following the shutdown. The border has seen at least 5,000 encounters almost every single day the last couple of years under Biden. If this bill were signed into law, the border would likely be shut down on the first day it takes effect.
Right, and that's the point, right? Because if it shuts down and it won't be allowed to be reopened, or in terms of like how this works, which means that effectively, for all intents and purposes, essentially this shuts down the asylum process, which, as the simulacrologist pointed out, almost certainly violates international law. That's not how this is supposed to work at all. Are we still talking about a Democrat? I don't know. How long have they been working on this, I wonder? They probably already had this prepared. To be honest, like a lot of these conservatives probably already had this prepared. It's their wet dream. It's literally their perfect gift wrapped anti-immigration bill. The problem is it has Biden's name attached to it, and like that's literally the only reason they don't like it, because they want to essentially run on this. Because like you best believe at the end of the day, if there were to be a Republican administration, like something like this would be pretty much like this would be expected. If a incoming Republican administration, or if there was a Republican administration at this time, this would be exactly what the type of stuff that they would be proposing. I'm sure Alec has a bunch of variations of this. Yep. No doubt about it.
This is basically a conservative saying, this bill is surprisingly good, right? He also concedes that there are things in there that people who are more humane towards immigrants would also support. And to be fair, that's true, right? But generally speaking, it is a drastically more punitive approach towards immigration that further criminalizes it overall. Now, it doesn't streamline the citizenship application process at all, nor does it give people already here asylum or a path to citizenship, even if they're already working and paying taxes here. But I mean, that's not to say that it's all negative, because as he said, there were some things that people who are doves on immigration would support. For example, 250,000 visas would be freed up for families of immigrants with H-1B visas, and asylum seekers might get work permits while their applications are being processed. So that's good. But overall, it doesn't even come close to being what the Democratic Party said they wanted, and it doesn't address the root causes. And it handles the issue of immigration in the same way that we handle all other issues in this country, by further criminalizing it and policing it more, which is why civil rights groups like the ACLU have come out against this legislation. It's cruel, it's barbaric, and it's a betrayal for the Democratic Party to support this after saying they're going to do things differently. Now, most people who are here illegally now...
Yeah, to be fair, like, they haven't been doing things more differently in terms of immigration. Hambless, the horn popped up on late night, and the moment I saw her, my mind went to, shut up, you screwed over Bernie. I guess I'm still mad. Well, I don't blame you.
Actually entered legally, and they just overstayed their visas. But since we make legal immigration very difficult, if not impossible in this country, people who already built lives here aren't just going to suddenly up and leave, nor should they. But rather than giving them a chance to become citizens, if they work really hard, this legislation just keeps them in limbo in perpetuity to appease Republicans. Furthermore, there will always be desperate people who have no choice but to cross the border illegally to escape violence, so long as conditions around the globe continues to deteriorate thanks to a number of conditions, including late-stage capitalism. But I mean, maybe if we didn't embolden cartels and gangs with our failed drug war and destabilize so many Latin American countries with decades of meddling, people wouldn't need to leave their countries and come here in the first place. But like all of us, immigrants are human beings just looking for a better life. But politicians have chosen to blame them instead of their own incompetence with regard to this issue. So as far as I'm concerned, Democrats and Republicans have...
and then use this whole thing as a political football.
failed on this issue. But here's where we get to the Republican Party having to do mental gymnastics and pretend like they don't support this, who scream about immigration the loudest. So Republicans, for the most part, have come out against this, and it's not because they suddenly grew hearts and they thought, maybe it's really mean the way we've been treating these human beings. No, they're against it simply because they don't want to give Democrats a win, and they don't think that it's harsh enough. But on top of that, Trump also told them to be against it for the fact that he doesn't want to give Biden a win before an election. So there's a number of reasons why they're against this, but they're all political reasons for the most part. But ironically, nobody even realizes that them not supporting this is actually better for Biden, even if none of them realize it, because the people who voted for Biden, you would imagine, expect him to be more humane towards immigrants. So,
right, Trump wants to run on brown people bad. Yeah, it's the same old story. Also, like I don't want the candidate that I support, the party that wants our support. I don't want them trying to do the same thing that the far-right party wants, right? And calling that a win. I don't understand. Like, if I wanted to vote for, like, far-right policies, I would have voted for Trump. And the people that you're trying to court by ratcheting over to the right are people that aren't going to vote for you, because why would a Trumper, even if this legislation became law, right, which I doubt, but even if this legislation became law, and Biden pretends that, you know, he's some kind of like tough on immigration or whatever. Why as a Trumper would I vote for Biden if I could just have the real deal? Like, this isn't gonna win any Trumpers, is my point. Doesn't matter because they hate Biden. Yeah, regardless. So what is the whole point of even appeasing these fascists?
away fascist Republicans in rejecting this bill.
Like I don't want the win to just be like, well, I did the fascist policies first. Okay? That's not acceptable.
Managed to save Biden from himself, and they inadvertently blocked Israel from getting more genocide money, and on top of that, somehow triggered another round of infighting within the Republican Party that got very tense. So even though seeing so many Democrats and Republicans support this kind of like killed my soul, not that I was expecting any different, but seeing them betray their base like this, it made me feel down. But then when you see the outcome and what this bill led to, the shitstorm that ensued, it made me happy. I'm not going to lie. But I mean, that's assuming nothing changes and fascists really do choose to reject this legislation. But at this point in time, they're pretty much saying this bill is DOA. In fact, that's literally what they're saying. Speaker Mike Johnson called the bill dead on arrival and said it's even worse than he imagined. Oh, sure it is. But hours earlier, he shared a clip of himself demanding Biden take action while chastising him for refusing to act. So he is pretending like Biden didn't just do exactly what he wanted Biden to do, and he's in effect rejecting a policy that he supports to spite Biden and appease Donald Trump. It's so fucking stupid. I mean, imagine if Trump proposed Medicare for all as president and the leftists were like, no, I don't support that. I want people to have health care, but I don't want him to have the political dub. I don't give a shit who supports the policy that I support. If it's good policy, it's good policy. So be objective and support it. Don't be a hack. But he's not doing that. I mean, Biden is giving him exactly what he wants. Maybe not everything he wants, because sure, they'd like it to be more draconian, but he's getting a huge win here, but he isn't supporting it because it's from Biden. They look so insane right now.
Right. And if thank goodness freaking fascists aren't exactly the brightest, because you could even spin it like if you wanted to paint the narrative that you actually twisted Biden's arm into finally recognizing the problem at the border and made him fix it. Like you could probably spin it and these cult members would probably eat it up. I agree. And on the same note, reschedule pot already. Anyone against that wasn't going to vote for Biden anyways. Exactly.
But Mike Johnson isn't necessarily representative of the entire party, because there are some Republicans who hate immigrants more than they love Trump, like Mitch McConnell and Mitt Romney and James Lankford. And they're now trying to reason with fellow fascists in their party by convincing them to support this barbaric bullshit while they have the chance, because once it's gone, they're not going to get a chance like this for a while.
This is a humanitarian and security crisis of historic proportions. And Senate Republicans have insisted, not just for months, but for years, that this urgent crisis demanded action. 3 months ago, we asked our colleague, Senator Lankford, to lead that action. In just the time since Washington Democrats finally decided to join him at the negotiating table, the president's border crisis made history all over again. December saw the highest daily and monthly tallies of illegal border crossings ever on record. And it's now time for Congress to take action on supplemental national security legislation that finally meets those.
Congress finally needs to take action. There's too many brown people coming over the border, and this president is allowing too many brown people.
Challenges head on.
Oh, I think the border is a very important issue for Donald Trump, and the fact that he would communicate to Republican senators and Congresspeople that he doesn't want us to solve the border problem because he wants to blame Biden for it is really appalling. But the reality is that we have a crisis at the border. The American people are suffering as a result of what's happening at the border, and
the American people are suffering as a result. Citation needed? Like, can we get an example of that? Biden can effectively legalize pot tomorrow. Doesn't have direct authority, but he does hire and fire the person who does. That's true.
Someone running for president ought to try and get the problem solved, as opposed to saying, hey, save that problem. Don't solve it. Let me take credit for solving it later.
So they're taking a principled and consistent position here. They hate immigrants, and as haters of immigrants, this bill is a no-brainer. Sure, we could always be more cruel, but I mean, beggars can't be choosers, right? It's an election year, and to get Democrats to go along with this is insane. So the fact that Republicans don't want to take them up on this offer is astonishing. Now, predictably, the Republicans who are against this haven't even read it. Many of them voiced their opposition to it before they saw the bill. Now, Republican James Lankford, who is one of the sponsors of this bill, along with Democrat Chris Murphy, explained that. And here's his response to Mike Johnson's outright rejection of the bill.
If this bill reaches the House, it will be dead on arrival. Your thoughts?
Yeah, unfortunately, he would step out and be able to see that right away before, obviously, he had had a chance to be able to read it as well and to be able to go through it. The key aspect of this, again, is are we as Republicans going to have press conferences and complain the border's bad and then intentionally leave it open after the worst month in American history in December?
So just to be clear, again, this is completely delusional. The border isn't open. Is the border crisis why I can't afford food and rent? Yep. It would pass the House if they voted on it. Johnson won't bring it to the floor, though. It would? I didn't see if they, did some test votes on it, but wow. Talk to the convoy goers are really suffering. Yeah, supposedly, I saw a couple of stories, and the people there at Eagle Pass, yeah. They got quite the surprise.
Now we've got to actually determine, are we going to just complain about things, or are we going to actually address and to change as many things as we can? If we have the shot, and it's amazing to me, if I go back 2 months ago and say we had the shot under a Democrat president to dramatically increase detention beds, deportation flights, lock down the border, to be able to change the asylum laws, right, to be able to accelerate the process, no one would have believed it. And now no one actually wants to be able to fix it and says, I don't want to even debate it. I don't want to discuss it. We have to decide as Republicans, what are we going to actually do about the border? Leave it open or actually leave it closed?
I think you know the answer to that question, James. But let's not try to pretend like this bill addresses the root causes here, because it doesn't. But even if it did, Republicans don't want to solve the issue of immigration, because if they do, then they lose a scapegoat that is very valuable. I mean, how do you win election?
Also, it's just like a manufactured problem, okay? I tried, you're going to complain about it, yep, in perpetuity. I tried it with my Texas mother-in-law, gave her the whole, how desperate does a mother have to be to uproot their kids and walk thousands of miles to a place where they don't even speak the language, but I don't think it moved their needle. Unfortunately, depending on the kind of person, I mean, if they're in the cult, they're in the cult. And if they're in a cult, their own willpower is what's going to get them out of there. They need to be the ones to want to leave the cult.
If you can't pawn all of America's problems off on people with no money and no power, who would their corporate donors exploit for cheap labor indefinitely if all of a sudden immigrants could get citizenship status or amnesty? They don't want to solve this issue. That's been clear from the start. But as you saw, Lankford, who's a sponsor of the bill, said that Johnson vocalized his opposition to it before he even read it, which is to be expected if you know the GOP's MO. Now, other GOP blowhards like Nancy Mace also decided that she was against it before she read it, even though she's pretending that she read it. But watch, because the Fox News host is going to call her out on her lying.
Have you read all 370 pages of this bill?
We are working through it. We have about 50 pages more to go. But from what we can tell, and I'm going to put forth a statement once we finish reading the bill, the measures that we feel are extremely undesirable, that keep our border open, that water down the asylum system, it's not good for the country.
Well, they say
quite
exactly
frankly.
the opposite. That's why I'm asking.
I mean, you claim you've read through most of the bill, but the way you're talking about it makes it seem like you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. That's basically what the Fox News host was saying there. I mean, it's got to be sad for the dozen or so GOP policy wonks in the country who are realizing that Republicans don't actually give a shit about policy. It's all about bluster and huffing and puffing, especially during election years. But the ones that do care right now, they've got to be perplexed with the rejection of this bill, given how draconian it is. It is everything they asked for, but they can't support it because Biden did it. Can't give a Democrat credit on anything. Now, I want to show you...
And again, like, even if that was the case, like, what do you think, like, the Democratic base is looking at this and going, like, oh, yeah, dude, that's totally what we wanted?
Fox News trying to sell this to Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who isn't important in this conversation because this is a governor of the state of Arkansas, and she's not going to be voting on this because she's not a member of Congress, but for some reason she's weighing in. But she's going to explain why she's against it. But in doing so, she's not just going to look foolish, but she's going to contradict herself within 10 seconds of speaking.
If you enforce all that, it sounds pretty good on its face. And the other thing he said is that it builds more wall. This is a Democratic president who would be signing this if it were to pass out of Congress in its current form. When you spend the money on the wall is to be debated. A lot of that comes in 2025 and beyond. But just on its face, Governor, what do you like about what they have done inside this bill?
I don't do Congress the way most people do. I'm the only Democrat in this race who has never, ever taken a dime from corporate power.
That's true.
Well, I think anything that we're doing that makes it harder for people to just freely walk in. Right now, we have had, under this administration, completely and totally open borders. In the last month alone, they picked up more people from the...
Yeah, again, that's not true. There's no such thing as... no such thing as an open border. Doesn't the government give Texas a shit ton of cash each year for border security? I'm not sure. The Democratic base is Wall Street and K Street.
The terrorist watch list than they did the entire 4 years of Donald Trump's presidency. So we have to put harsher and tougher restrictions in place. In the state of Arkansas, we took in and seized so much fentanyl that it would kill 2.8 million people. And that's just in our state alone. That's almost the entire population of Arkansas. I'm not saying there aren't some good merits of this legislation, but if they're not going to take serious action at the congressional level, then Republican governors are going to continue to step up where the federal government is failing.
That was absolutely incredible. So she said the borders are completely and totally open, yet in the same breath said in the last month alone, they also picked up more people from the terrorist watch list than the entire 4 years of Trump's presidency, which is bizarre because when you say it like that, it almost makes it seem like the borders aren't completely open and they're doing a lot of apprehensions. It almost makes it seem like Biden is actually more effective than Trump at policing the borders. But please, Sarah, continue to explain to us how the borders are wide open and anyone can just cross at any time. All you have to do to get over the border is walk up to an ICE agent and say, "Hello, sir, I'd like to enter the country illegally, please. All I have are the clothes on my back and this 10-pound bag of cocaine." And the ICE agent would have to say, "Well, you know what? I don't want to let you through, but because of Biden, I have to let everyone in. So come on in, sir. I'll hold the door open for you." I mean, I'm being hyperbolic, but like this is literally what some Americans think. That's what they actually think happens. And it's because of people like Sarah. I almost called her Sarah Palin, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who lie to them constantly. Like, this is why we're all stupid as a country. It's because we're all misinformed by people who are in power. Now, if we're trying to steelman the argument of someone like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, they say that since there's thousands of daily border crossings, well, that is effectively an open border. It's tantamount to an open border. Now, the problem with this argument, aside from it being a lie, is that it presupposes that there wasn't all of these border crossings under Donald Trump.
Right, which again, like, they make it seem as if like there was some kind of like difference between like Trump and Biden. Under Trump, closed borders, effective wall, literally just not that. The administration immediately after, all of a sudden open borders. Apparently, the same wall that's still there isn't effective anymore, and now we have like a gajillion people coming in.
But here's the problem, and the dirty little secret that Republicans don't want to let you know about. There were still thousands of crossings under Trump because we've never tried to actually address the issue in a meaningful way. Now, right-wing ideologues go to great lengths to hide this fact from their global audiences. Case in point.
I would also
also remind folks during the Trump administration, we also had days of more than 4,000 people that were illegally crossing the border under the Trump administration in 2019, and they were struggling because there's gaps and loopholes in the law.
Yeah, but Senator, you know that Donald Trump,
So
we
no
were
matter
at a
who's president,
45-year
we can
low
turn
in
it
illegal
around.
crossings under Donald Trump, and that's just a fact. I've got the evidence to
dramatically fewer.
a 45-year low under Donald Trump in 2019.
We also had days of 3,000, 4,000, 4,500 that were happening.
But
during that
nothing
time
like
period.
what we've seen right
They had
now.
problems
Okay,
with the law
let me
itself,
just
trying to figure out how to be able to implement it.
Nope. La. I can't hear you, Senator. Crossings were much lower under Donald Trump. Senator, please shut the fuck up. We desperately need people to believe that Trump's cruel policies were a useful deterrent. Otherwise, Americans might begin to question whether or not Trump was as effective as they remember. Or worse, Americans might actually wonder, hey, maybe it seems like being really mean to immigrants doesn't actually accomplish what we want it to accomplish. See the propaganda in action, don't you? But what we're seeing here is a strong divide emerging between two camps within the Republican Party, with two leaders, Mitch McConnell and Mike Johnson, on opposite sides of each side here, which is interesting to me. And this creates real friction to the point where some Senate Republicans want to McCarthy McConnell. I'm not joking about that. Ross Story reports Senate Republican Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, the longest serving party leader in the history of the U.S. Senate, is facing increased rebellion from the far-right faction of his conference, with calls for his ouster, including from one longtime GOP senator who declared, "We need new leadership now," and a reporter calling it a hint at mutiny. Quote, "Brawl erupts in Senate GOP over border security supplemental," is the AM headline at Punchbowl News, with the news outlet reporting, quote, "The bills released Sunday night was like pouring gasoline on the fire that is the Senate GOP internal war. Senators and aides publicly and privately questioned whether a majority of the Republican conference would back it, a key metric. There were even calls for an immediate leadership change from some GOP senators and conservative outside groups." Now, the call from leadership change comes from Mike Lee, who tweeted, quote, "This feels like an elaborate practical joke. I cannot understand how any Republican would think this was a good idea or anything other than an unmitigated disaster. We need new leadership now." But he's not alone. Frank Thorpe 5 of NBC News reports Schumer on a call with reporters now on the supplemental aid bill, quote, "I have never worked more closely with Leader McConnell on any piece of legislation as we did on this." Now, Schumer said this to reassure Republicans that it was as conservative as they wanted it to be, but Josh Hawley responded saying, "That's the problem." Now, Ted Cruz also took aim at McConnell indirectly while lying about the bill, tweeting, quote, "The Senate Republican leadership's border bill with the Democrats doesn't solve the problem. It will allow 1.8 million illegal aliens into our country yearly. Joe Biden and the Democrats will use this legislation to say they tried to fix the border and then blame House Republicans for not passing it." And to be clear, he's lying about what the bill does, but to be fair, I don't think that he's wrong when it comes to the politics of it, because if House Republicans say they want to address the border but then turn down legislation that does just that, of course Biden is going to use that against them. But this dynamic here is so interesting to me, because in the House, Mike Johnson is dealing with a faction of fascists who would quickly McCarthy him if he got out of line, so he can't support it if he wants to keep his job. Whereas in the Senate, McConnell is the one who's actually rebelling against his caucus, and as a result, they now are rebelling against him, and they want to McCarthy him. Now, they don't have the power to do to McConnell what Republicans in the House did to McCarthy, but that hasn't stopped them from saying they want to, and it's also led to tensions boiling over. Andrew Desiderio of Punchbowl News reports, quote, "Fireworks at Senate GOP comms directors meeting this AM over border bill. After Senator Langford's team gave presentation on the bill and opened up for cues, Senator Lee's staff was yelling at Langford's staff per multiple people in room. Lee aide eventually left room saying betrayal, and then he adds that the room erupted in laughter after the Lee aide stormed out." So this is an all-out shit show, and Republicans are desperately trying to keep things under wraps so that way it doesn't get as ugly as the McCarthy ouster got. But I mean, it's not working, and things are spilling out into the public, and it doesn't help that a lot of Republicans benefit from intra-party warfare because it makes them look like the most pure Republicans. So they're going to the media, they're puffing out their chest, and they're trying to look tough. But I mean, it's a shit show.
Thank goodness that fascists are just truly incompetent.
Right now, you have Republicans crossing chamber lines in a sense, meaning that they're supporting the GOP leader in the Senate when they're in the House, when their boss, Mike Johnson is against it. I'm talking about Dan Crenshaw, who said if you are against something without knowing what it is, that is the height of stupidity. And he took some shots at senators who are against this, calling it just befuddling. Not his words, mine, but nonetheless, this is what he says.
I'm extremely disappointed in the very strange maneuvering by many on the right to torpedo a potential border reform bill. If we have a bill that, on net, significantly decreases illegal immigration, and we sabotage that, that is inconsistent with what we told our voters we would do. People will make up whatever reasons they want to. There's a number of them, I'm sure. But it would be a pretty unacceptable dereliction of your duty.
So we are watching a GOP civil war unfold before our very eyes again. And I think that, you know, Republicans in general probably wouldn't support this because they would never go along with something that a Democratic president wants, and they don't want to give him a win, especially during an election year. But regardless, I think that Trump and his strong opposition to this legislation is really what solidifies their position. And I think that Sawyer Hackett put it best, tweeting, "The Republican Party in a nutshell. On Monday, they're going to kill the harshest immigration deal in decades because their nominee wants to run on this issue. On Tuesday, they're going to launch an impeachment inquiry into the DHS secretary for not being harsher on immigration." Exactly. And that is a different story for a different day, but they are hypocrites. That's the TLDR. Now, that's not surprising when it comes to Republicans, but on the other side of the aisle, dumbass Democrats like Chuck Schumer, for example, thinks that he can still reason with Republicans like Johnson. He thinks that he can get through to Johnson. So let's watch this pathetic pitch that he makes to Speaker Johnson on Morning Joe.
Do the right thing. You know what the right thing to do is. You know we need to fix our border. You know that it has to be bipartisan. The bill that you passed didn't get a single Democratic vote in the House or the Senate. How are you going to get anything done? Or do you just want to make a speech as you admittedly say the border's in chaos? Do something about it. Don't just politically posture.
Listen, Mike, I believe you're going to do the right thing, okay? We all want to fuck over immigrants. I get that you're mad because this bill doesn't have death camps, but what would Jesus do? He would support this bill where we fuck over immigrants, okay? Do the right thing. Listen, on a serious note, though, it should really...
True. GOP loves them in civil wars, so true.
Genuinely unnerve everyone how quickly Democrats are willing to go full fascist if they think that there's any political gain whatsoever in doing that. It's why there's this saying, cut a liberal and a fascist bleeds, right? Now, I would typically say that this feels like Democrats are giving the finger to their base as they become more Trumpian, and I think that that's true to an extent, but honestly, I don't think that Democratic Party loyalists are against this. I think they would probably support all of Trump's policies so long as it was done by a Democrat and they used flowery rhetoric while doing it. But as little faith as I have at this point in the electorate, the ones who are principled, who would be opposed to what Democrats are doing if they knew, are being lied to, which is why so many of them aren't speaking up. For example, just try to put aside in this next clip Schumer's insufferable dick sucking of Republicans and try to focus on how he's trying to sell this to voters. Like, he's speaking to Republicans in this clip, but this is on liberal MSNBC. So in actuality, he's making a pitch to Democratic Party voters. Look at how he disingenuously sells this bill.
If this does pass the Senate, which is you're confident will do.
I'm confident, hopeful is the right word. This is hard. And our Republican senators, we need a bunch of them, are under a lot of pressure from the right-wing Trump part of the party.
So let's do it in two parts. Talk to us a little more about the dynamics in the Senate and why you are hopeful. And then secondly, but even if you get it through the Senate, if he's saying it's dead, what happens next? How do the dynamics change?
Good questions, both. How do we get it through the Senate? Senators have to rise to the occasion. A large number of senators have shown real courage. Senator Langford, I mean, he was chosen by Mitch McConnell to negotiate this because he's very conservative. He's not in the middle of where the Republican senators are. He's somewhat to the right, a very religious, deeply God-fearing man. And he had the courage to do it. McConnell, you know, I mean, maybe I'm not supposed to say something good about McConnell because the right wing will go, ow, 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 which they always do. But he's shown courage because he knows it's the right thing to do. I've had private talks with McConnell. He knows what will happen to America if Putin and Ukraine succeed. And we have some of these right-wing Republicans in the Senate who used to decry Putin and now say don't aid Ukraine. All political and really horribly political.
What?
Because of so much is at stake. So let's assume that our senators in the Senate rise to the occasion. okay? And I hope they will. Everyone's talking to each other. Once they look at the bill.
What is this word salad? Are we going to get to a point?
When Langford showed some of the Republicans the bill, they finally saw what was in it and say, oh, this is a real compromise. This isn't to sell out one way or the other. If it passes the Senate, there are a large number of congressmen in the House. First, there's a big group of hawks in the middle, and they care about funding Ukraine. They always have. And the strategy of Johnson is right now do nothing. There's a large number of pro-Israel people. They care about that. Then there's a large number of progressive legislators, I'm included, who want to see that the people in Gaza don't starve, and we get that aid to them. Plus, there are some who care about Taiwan, and there's money there to bolster us against China's aggression there. You know, we're in an aggressive world.
So he's trying to downplay the barbarity when it comes to immigration, and he's trying to sell it to liberals who are concerned about Ukraine, and also trying to sell it to progressives who are concerned about Gaza. But, I mean, those provisions were obviously attached to entice people who weren't thrilled about the mean immigration policies that they're supporting. But notice how insulting his pitch is here, especially to progressives. Let's put up the graphic that they showed on the screen. So the humanitarian aid that they're offering to Gazans is $10 billion split with Ukraine. But if you're a progressive who wants that crucial aid to go to Palestinians, well, guess what? You've got to support even more money going to weapons to be used against them in order to get that crucial aid. This is such fucking bullshit. This is downright morally bankrupt. And here's what I say. Chuck, how about you, instead of pandering to Republicans and kissing their ass on national television, take that bill and shove it up your asshole. Just do that, and then go fuck yourself. Like, what a piece of shit.
True. The aid to Gaza is being attacked with the weapons we're giving to Israel. Yep.
Anyone who supports this bill is a bad person. Period. Full stop. You don't have a moral conscience if you support something like this. But guess what? If you don't have a moral conscience and you also happen to be a soulless ghoul, but you oppose it for some reason because you're a partisan hack, guess what? Desperate times call for desperate measures. I'll accept that too. I accept outcomes in this situation. So if Republicans aren't opposing this for moral reasons, but they're still opposing it, okay. I mean, things are so bad that we're in a situation where fascist Republicans managed to reverse engineer a positive outcome for the country just by being petulant dickheads. I'll take it. Look, it's not the first time that they've checkmated themselves and tried to pretend like this was a win for them, but I'll take it.
I mean, like I said, it's incredibly fortunate that fascists are pretty incoherent and self-sabotage. Because, man.
Back when Obama tried to team up with Tea Party Republicans to cut Social Security, they rejected his offer then too because it wasn't harsh enough. And then they talked about how, oh, we opposed Obama and they're going to do the same thing. But you know what? I don't give a shit. I think that the outcomes are what we should focus on, and the policy, not the party, is what we should be looking at. And if the outcome here is good, then I'll take it. And that means if they kill the bill, I don't care why they kill it, I just care that they kill the bill. But in conclusion, shame on any politician who supports this morally reprehensible legislation. I mean, Democrats are pivoting to the right in hopes that they're going to be able to pick up moderate voters after pissing off their entire base by unconditionally supporting a genocide in Gaza. And Republicans, they don't really want to solve any of the issues they claim to care about, because then if they do that, they won't be able to run on anything in the next election. So you've got to keep at least a couple of scapegoats and not solve problems, so that way you can run on it. It's all a show, right? That's the conclusion.
Yeah. And you know what? You're not going to get those voters. You're not going to get those right-wing voters, those moderates, those elusive moderates. You're not going to win those people.
Bottom line, it's all a show, and we are witnessing quintessential political theater here, and you should know that. Just kidding, it's not the end of the video yet, because as we're about to finish editing this, guess what happened? Sawyer Hackett reports that Mitch McConnell is now whipping votes against the bill that he supported this morning, and now Langford is not committing to supporting his own bill. I guess they felt like they didn't have the political capital needed to get it passed, and they already exhausted too much whipping votes for it, so they're against it. Who knows? They're a joke, but I guess Mitch McConnell solved his problem of not getting McCarthy'd by caving. I don't know what to say. This party is fucking stupid, so there's the latest update for you. It'll probably change by the time you see this video, but nonetheless, that's where we're at right now. They're now against the bill that they were in favor of, so cool.
Nice. Nice meme. Nice meme. All right, folks, let's switch gears really quickly. Here's something very interesting. A general election poll among independents. Now, I think this is an outlier. I think that this is an outlier, but supposedly with this poll, among independents, Trump has a plus 22 lead. Even if a third of the plus 22 is real, even if a third of that is real, that's a problem. Okay? Because like elections are going to be made or broken or lost, I guess, based on how much this percentage shifts. That's what's going to determine where this election is going to fall, because it's very close. Make no mistake about it. The election is very, very close. And the independent percentage swinging one way or another will ultimately end up determining the election. As it is, it's already, it's already known, or it can be estimated that both sides, they're, especially with the MAGA crowd, their constituency is pretty much decided, right? So the fact that like even if a third of this is true, even if a third of this plus 22 is true, that's a problem. And you can kind of see it manifest itself in a general poll where Trump is currently plus 4, where if you look at the history of how these numbers have been going, I don't know if it was this exact poll, but there was another poll that you could see how Trump has been catching up throughout this time. It hasn't been getting any better. The trend, not just one outlier, but like the trend of how these polls are turning out seems to indicate or seems to suggest that that Trump does have a real shot of winning this. It's not to be taken lightly. It's not to be taken lightly. We're 9 months out to the election. And as I posted this out, posted this here on Twitter, if this is the same, if we're looking at the same trajectory of Trump, like, creeping in the polls, and Biden getting lower and lower and lower in the polls, which seems to be a consistent trend, if these numbers continue, and we're 4 months from now, there is no time to turn the corner. it's Jover at that. Like without a doubt. Of course, anything can change, or we'll have. It's possible that we have like some sort of surprise in the election, but as it is, it's a pretty close race, and the one thing that we can derive from the polls is the trend that Trump is gaining. Biden's numbers look terrible, and people aren't happy. There's a very real risk that the people that delivered the win for Biden in 2020 will just stay home. And when you have an election that's this close, it's usually not favorable to the Democratic candidate. Oh, did we get a small hiccup there? Are we good? Okay, we're back. All right. Excellent. Anyways, like I was trying to say, I'll end with this. The idea that, if you're going to continue to look at this trend and think that there's nothing wrong and want to ignore this, then you are delusional. It's that simple. Nine months left, folks. 9 months left. Shifting gears here, Chutkin contemplates Trump trial extending deep into 2024 as case remains in limbo. And like this idea that, oh God, people are saying or banking or gambling on the idea that like, oh, wait till people hear a guilty verdict. We don't know if that's going to be possible. We don't know. Or if we get one of these criminal trials resolved before the election, we don't know if there's even time for a guilty verdict to even have an impact. Because, like, let's say, this extends deep into 2024. This doesn't even get resolved until like October, or just weeks before the election. Is that really going to impact the election as much? Probably not. Probably not. And furthermore, the people that are already going to vote for Trump, they're not going to be moved by a guilty verdict. Okay, this is just going to be another chance for Trump to get on the soapbox and say that he's a victim of the radical of the radical left injustice system that is trying to interfere in the election. Like that's literally it, and that's it. That's all he needs to say. Even if it were the case that he gets found guilty and convicted on all of the cases, all he has to do is get on Truth Social and say that this is just a plot by radical left judges who are trying to do election interference on behalf of the Democrats and Joe Biden. Like, it doesn't matter. So people putting stock into the idea that somehow guilty verdicts might move the needle one way or another, I just don't know. Hey, Firefly, I don't know how much of an effect that's going to have. Will it have an effect? Maybe. Maybe. The reality is we just don't even know if we're even going to see a resolution to any of these trials. The judge presiding over Trump's Washington, D.C. criminal case acknowledged on Monday today that the former president's trial could extend deep into 2024, though significant uncertainty continues to cloud the timeline. District Judge Tanya Chutkan told attorneys in another criminal case that she intended to be out of the country early in August unless the Trump trial is underway. I hope not to be in the country August 5th, Chutkan said in a sparsely attended conference for other criminal cases, one of more than 1,200 stemming from the January 6th attack on the Capitol. If she is stateside, Chutkan added, that will be because I'm in trial in another matter that has not yet returned to my calendar. Chutkan's comment was a clear reference to Trump's case, which has been on hold since December as a federal appeals court considers whether Trump should be deemed immune from charges related to his conduct as president, which we will get to. It was Chutkan's first public acknowledgement that the Trump trial on charges related to his effort to subvert the election, the 2020 election, could extend past the GOP nominating contest and the RNC convention, which is scheduled to be held July 15th to 18th. However, for the second time in a week, the Obama-appointed judge emphasized that the schedule is largely out of her control. On Friday, Chutkan formally called off Trump's original March 4 trial date and indicated she would reset it if and when the higher courts resolve the immunity issue and allow her to proceed with the trial. She said at the time her schedule in mid-April and beyond remained in flux because of uncertainty surrounding this case. Now she seems to be considering longer-term scenarios. Notably, prosecutors in Georgia have proposed putting Trump on trial in August in a separate criminal case connected to the 2020 election, though the request remains pending before the judge in the case, Scott McAfee. Chutkan has repeatedly insisted that Trump's political calendar will have no bearing on her decision. Trump is charged with conspiring to disenfranchise millions of voters by pressuring state and federal officials to upend Biden's victory in the 2020 election based on false claims of fraud. She has described the matter as weighty and urgent, requiring a fair but speedy resolution, and she rejected Trump's call to schedule it in 2026. What? In Trump's March 4 trial date now canceled, Chutkan scheduled a separate January 6 trial to begin that day. She has another January 6 related trial scheduled for April 2nd and sentencing on April 10th. On that note, Trump is not immune from prosecution in his 2020 election interference case, the U.S. Appeals Court says. A federal appeals panel ruled today, Tuesday, that Donald Trump can face trial on charges that he plotted to overturn the results of the 2020 election, sharply rejecting the former president's claim that he is immune from prosecution while setting the stage for additional challenges that could further delay the case. Meanwhile, he gets to run on this victim campaign, on this campaign of martyrdom, where he is the victim, and he is unjustly being persecuted by the radical left, Biden, communist, whatever, to try to steal the election again in 2024. Phenomenal stuff. That's right, we have no kings. Contrary to what Donald Trump says, Article 2 does not let him do whatever he wants. He does not have complete blanket immunity from prosecution. That's just not. This is like logically. That's just not even how. Like the fact that this is even being brought up is in front of a judge is wild. Because does the law not apply to everybody? Last time I checked, as Michael Hatzer pointed out, Trump isn't king. Sharply rejecting the former president's claim that he is immune from prosecution while setting the stage for additional challenges that could further delay the case. The ruling is significant not only for its stark repudiation of Trump's it's one way of phrasing it, I suppose, immunity claims, but also because it breathes life back into a landmark prosecution that had been effectively frozen for weeks as the court considered the appeal. Yet the 1 month gap between the court heard arguments and issued its ruling has already created uncertainty about the timing of a trial in a calendar-jammed election year, with the judge overseeing the case last week canceling the initial March 4th date, which we just went over. Trump's team vowed to appeal, which could postpone the case by weeks or by months, particularly if the Supreme Court agrees to take it up. The appeals panel, which can include two appointees by President Biden and one Republican-appointed judge, gave Trump a week to ask the Supreme Court to get involved. The eventual trial date carries enormous political ramifications, with special counsel Jack Smith's team hoping to prosecute Trump this year, and the Republican frontrunner seeking to delay it until after the November election. Yeah, logically speaking, there's only like one real reason this dude's trying. Well, there might be several, but like the ones that make the most sense is that like ultimately, he needs these cases or trials to go on while he's running, and he's banking on winning to escape consequences. That's why he wants this to continue until after the election date, because he wants to roll the dice and attempt to skirt consequences. Phenomenal stuff. And what's wild is that, like, as it stands, there is a possibility, not just like, there's a small... No, there is a possibility that this dude wins. Okay? If Trump were to beat Biden, he could presumably try to use his position as head of the executive branch to order a new attorney general to dismiss the federal cases he faces or potentially seek a pardon for himself, which, yeah. Lots of gray areas in that regard. I don't know if we legally have resolved the issue of whether or not a president can pardon himself. I don't think we've resolved that one. Tuesday's unanimous ruling is the second time since December that judges have held that Trump can be prosecuted for actions undertaken while in the White House and in the run-up to January 6th, when a mob of his supporters decided to do an insurrection and storm the Capitol. The opinion, which had been expected given the skepticism with which the panel greeted the Trump team's argument, was unsparing in its repudiation of Trump's novel claim that the former president enjoys absolute immunity for actions that fall within their official job duties. Right. But, like, what official job duty? Like, what actions... if you're trying to undermine an election, how does that fall under actions within your official job duty? Like, that doesn't even make sense. For the purpose of the criminal case, former President Trump has become Citizen Trump with all the defenses of any other criminal defendant. But any executive immunity that may have protected him while he served as president no longer protects him against this prosecution. Existing is his job. The judges said that the public interest in criminal accountability outweighs the potential risk of chilling presidential action, turning aside the claim that the president has unbounded authority to commit crimes that would prevent the recognition of election results or violate the rights of citizens to vote. Yeah, like, Trump was crying on his social media saying that, like, oh, by this logic, that means that any opposition can just prosecute the opposition once they get out of power. No, that's not how this works. You can't just prosecute people, whether it be presidents or civilians. You can't just prosecute people if they haven't, committed a crime or under the presumption that they've committed a crime. Because, like, the only reason why he's even in this mess is because there was enough evidence that was presented to a grand jury, went through the entire, by-the-book legal process. Evidence was gathered, an investigation started, evidence was gathered. Once they had that and completed their investigation, presented that evidence to a grand jury, which agreed or concluded that indictments were appropriate, then the indictments were issued, and now we're here. This didn't just come out of nowhere, and this isn't just like an opposition thing, right? Like, I'm sorry you did crimes, and I'm sorry that you're now, facing potential accountability for that. Quote, we cannot accept that the office of the presidency places its former occupants above the law for all time thereafter. True. A Trump spokesman said Tuesday that Trump would appeal the ruling in order to safeguard the presidency and the Constitution. And in a post on Truth Social after the ruling was issued, Trump insisted that a president... Oh, yeah, this is what I was talking about. Quote, a president must have full immunity in order to properly function and do what needs to be done for the good of our country. Another way of translating it is, a president needs to be able to do whatever he wants to be a dictator because that's what's best for the country. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit, the District of Columbia Circuit took center stage in the immunity dispute after the Supreme Court in December said it was at least temporarily staying out, rejecting a request from Smith's team to take up the matter quickly and issue a speedy ruling. But the High Court could yet decide to act on a Trump appeal. There is no timetable for the Supreme Court to act, but the justices are likely to seek Smith's input before deciding whether to keep the legal rulings against the former president in place. If the court declines to consider the appeal, the U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan would be able to restart the trial proceedings, which is what we were going over just previously. When the president does it, it's not illegal. If, on the other hand, the Supreme Court accedes to Trump's request, any timetable it establishes would determine how much longer the trial might be delayed. If the court grants Trump's request without speeding up the appeals process, Trump would likely have until early May before he would need to file his full appeal. But the justices could set much quicker deadlines for reaching a final decision. Weird Nixon impression. Okay, so Biden can order the Biden can order the Trump family assassination, declare all MAGA people traitors to the America, burn the Constitution, become president for life, and name his son Hunter his heir. Apparently, since the president of the United States can do nothing legal. Correct. Under Trump's logic, yes, that would be correct. And Biden should probably get started. Since there's only a couple months left. The Supreme Court has previously held that presidents are immune from civil liability for official acts, and Trump's lawyer have for months argued that protection should be extended to criminal prosecution as well. They said that the actions Trump was accused of in his failed bid to cling to power after he lost the 2020 election, including badgering his vice president to refute... badgering? Yeah, I mean, like... That is such a wild framing to be like, well, he just kind of nagged at the vice president to not certify the results. that's just a wild way of like wording it. In comparison to like the actual ramifications of what he was actually trying to do. Like, maybe I'm just nitpicking here, but like it just feels like the impression here is that like he just kind of went up to Mike Pence and just like nagged him for a little bit and threw a little tantrum, and sent a memo or something, sent several emails nagging him, and that was the end of it. Like, dude, do you know like the ramifications of the things that he was trying to do? I don't know. Badgering his vice president to refuse to certify the results of the election all fell within outer perimeters of a president's official acts. True. President's official acts include attempting to stage multiple schemes to overturn the election. True. That definitely falls under presidential official acts. But Smith's team has said that no such immunity exists in the Constitution or in prior case, and that in any event, Trump's actions weren't part of his official duties. Exactly. But Smith's team has said that no. Chutkin, who's presiding over the case, rejected Trump's argument in a December opinion that said the office of the president does not confer a lifelong get-out-of-jail-free pass. Yeah, rename the country the Communist States of America. Exactly. Trump's lawyers then turned to D.C. appeals court, but Smith asked the Supreme Court to weigh in first in hopes of securing a fast and definitive ruling and preserving the March 4th trial date. The High Court declined this request and left the matter with the appeals court. The case was argued before Judge Florence Pan and Michelle Childs, appointees of Biden, a Democrat, and Karen Lee Craft Henderson, who was named to the bench by President George H.W. Bush, a Republican. The judge made clear their skepticism of Trump's claim during the arguments last month when they peppered his lawyer with questions and posed a series of extreme hypotheticals to test his legal theory of immunity, including whether a president who directed Navy commandos to assassinate a political rival could be prosecuted. Which I think that's what Conscious Canuck was alluding to. Trump's lawyer, John Sawyer, answered, yes, but only if a president had been first impeached and convicted by Congress. That view is in keeping with the team's position that the Constitution did not permit the prosecution of ex-presidents who had been impeached but then acquitted like Trump. Cool. The case in Washington is one of 4 prosecutions that Trump faces as he seeks to reclaim the White House. He faces federal charges in Florida that he legally retained classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago estate, a case that's also been brought by Smith and is set for trial in May. He's also charged in the state court in Georgia with scheming to subvert the state's 2020 election, and in New York in connection with hush money payments made to porn actor Stormy Daniels. He has denied any wrongdoing. Give me 1 second, folks. I need to grab a quick drink. It's right over there, so I'll be right back. I promise it won't even take a second. I'm back. I mean, I was never gone. drinking while streaming. Sparkling water, I'll have you know. Sparkling water. The vote is tied. I prefer cloudy water. With just a hint of lead. The House Republicans are ready to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas. After just rejecting this bill. Cool. Very logical. Makes total sense. Again, I'm just very grateful that fascists are completely incoherent and incompetent. Otherwise, you know, we'd be in a worse situation. The U.S. House has opened debate ready to impeach Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas, Secretary Mayorkas, over the border security, a deeply partisan and highly unusual attack on a cabinet official that has drawn concerns from constitutional scholars and a rebuke from Democrats. The Republicans in the House argue that Mayorkas has failed to comply with immigration laws, resulting in a record surge of immigrants at the U.S.-Mexico border, and has breached public trust by his actions and comments. The House votes on the charge. The House vote on the charges, which Democrats say are untrue and hardly grounds for impeachment, is set for afternoon, but it's unclear if Republicans have enough support. House Speaker Mike Johnson said he spoke privately with at least 2 Republican holdouts, acknowledging with the heavy decision that he's trying to encourage their votes. And it's an extreme measure, said Johnson, who can only lose a few Republicans from a slim majority, but extreme times call for extreme measures. Bro, like, these people are literally, like, completely incoherent. They're arguing that they need to impeach this guy over the border issue, but also reject a incredibly hard-lined immigration policy. Not since 1876 has a cabinet secretary faced impeachment charges, and it's the first time a sitting secretary is being impeached. 148 years ago, Secretary of War William Belknap resigned just before the vote. I'm looking at you, Project 2025. That's right. That's what the baddie on the Disney movie Wish says. Extreme times call for extreme measures. The impeachment charges against Mayorkas come as border security is fast becoming a top political issue in 2024. But like a top political issue to who? Because like most Democrats, most Democratic voters, that's on the bottom of the list here. A particularly potent line of attack leveled at President Biden by Republicans, led by the party's frontrunner for the presidential nomination, Donald Trump. Record number of people have been arriving at the southern border, many fleeing countries around the world, in what Mayorkas calls an era of global migration. Many migrants are claiming asylum and being conditionally released in the U.S., arriving in cities that are under-equipped to provide housing and other aid, while they await judicial proceedings, which can take years to determine whether they may remain. Can't continue to agitate the base and raise funds if the border is fixed. Thanks, Biden. But true. The House Democrats are expected to unite against the 2 articles of impeachment against Mayorkas, calling the proceedings a sham over charges that do not rise to the Constitution's bar of treason, bribery, or high crimes and misdemeanors. Quote, a bunch of garbage, said Representative McGovern ahead of a procedural vote. He called Mayorkas a good man, a decent man who's simply trying to do his job. Even if Republicans are able to impeach Mayorkas, he's not expected to be convicted in the Senate trial, where Republican senators have been cool to the effort. The Senate could simply refer the matter to a committee for its own investigation, delaying immediate action. After House Republicans narrowly cleared a procedural vote Tuesday, putting impeachment on track, the debate launched with the reading of the 2 articles of impeachment against them. The impeachment of Mayorkas landed quickly onto the House agenda after Republican efforts to impeach Biden over the business dealings of his son, Hunter Biden, hit a lull in the investigation into the Biden. I'm sorry. All I see is Biden crime family drags. Part of me thinks that these people are probably hoping that people forget, because they really actually have no evidence, at least in this avenue. But who knows? I'm sure when it's convenient, they might bring it back up. The committee on Homeland Security under Chairman Mark Green, Representative Tennessee, or Republican of Tennessee, I don't know, I guess they both make sense, have been investigating the secretary for much of the past year, including probes, the probing of flow of deadly fentanyl into the U.S., but a resolution from Representative Green, a Trump ally, pushed it to the fore. The panel swiftly held a pair of hearings in January before announcing the 2 articles of impeachment against Mayorkas. 2016 to 2014, 216 to 214, the vote failed to impeach Mayorkas. Womp, womp, womp. They're impeaching everyone up in this. Yep. One Republican flipped to no. Cool. So thankful fascists are incompetent. Whew. A former federal prosecutor, the secretary, never testified on his own behalf, but submitted a rare letter to the panel defending his work. Tuesday's vote arrives at a politically odd juncture for Mayorkas, who has been shuttling to the Senate to negotiate a bipartisan border security package, earning high marks from a group of senators involved in the effort, which, as we now know, all got torpedoed. So yeah. As the Tuesday's 2-hour debates were underway, it wasn't completely clear that Johnson, with one of the smallest House majorities in modern times, had the support of almost all Republicans needed to impeach Mayorkas, which we now know he did not. McClintock, Republican of California, announced his opposition on Tuesday, saying the charges failed to identify an impeachable crime that Mayorkas has committed. The conservative McClintock said in a lengthy memo that the articles of impeachment in the committee explain the problems at the border under Biden's watch, but they stretch and distort the Constitution. I think that's pretty much the point, the end of the story here. At the end of the day, these people don't care. It's a political football to them, and let's say source of scapegoats. It's a scapegoat. It's a scapegoat issue. As long as they don't solve it, they can cry about open borders and whatnot. They can cry about open borders and brown people. Before we finish this article, I have to. Okay, I know this is bait, but I have to. I understand that this is bait, but I have to. Okay.
Well, you actually clicked the link. Let me tell you why that's a big deal. Kind of. Sort of. So I'll get to the news in a second here. First, I want to share with you all Blue Sky is now open to the public. So Blue Sky is one of the Twitter competitors that
Nice.
Doesn't suck. It is now open. You can go and follow me on Blue Sky. This is my page, daviddole.bsky.social. And just search me up. You'll find me. That's, of course, if you care at all. But this is just, hopefully we can put Twitter out to pasture. Because as we'll get to in a second.
You can also follow me on Blue Sky. Don't you feel stupid? Just kidding. Yeah, I know it's tempting to join. Yeah, I mean, I made my my account. Get me an invite. I have an invite. Although now it's not necessary, right? You don't need it anymore. Because I actually had invites. Recently acquired after joining.
In here, there is a interesting trend, I suppose, in news that doesn't bode too well potentially for the general election and just generally, even apart from the election. But this from Axios: Americans are tuning out politics news ahead of 2020.
Oh man, yeah, this is pretty freaking bad. Just kind of adding, I had an invite right link too. I'm cool, nice. I have like one follower or a couple followers. Yeah, this is exactly what I was saying. People are just gonna stay home, and the energy, and by energy I mean like the massive amount of turnout that happened in 2020. That's not guaranteed. That's not guaranteed in 2024.
24 election. So take a look at the trend here. Back in 2020, of course, you got the pandemic being a big reason for why people were a little more engaged, but also, throughout the year, part of it being for the election as well.
I do need
Since
to add
then,
a Blue Sky.
Of course, there was a...
You're right. Like, instead of just, like, hawking my Twitter, which, like, my Twitter account has like, 510 followers, or 500 and something followers. Funnily enough, it's, like, my most successful social media that isn't, like, Twitch. That isn't like video or broadcast related, because I'm just not good at the social media game. I have an Instagram, but like it's dead because I barely use Instagram. Anyways, yeah, I think I can make commands like that. Pretty sure I have my Twitter. Do I not have my Twitter on the commands? No, I guess not. Maybe I need to make a command that just does socials, and it just gives you all the links. I think I'm gonna do that. I gotta work on that. Anyways.
Sharp drop off after the election, but there was even a little jump up, possibly during the midterms there. But it's been trending downward generally. And this is not just this set of data saying this. There's also more. So this is from, let me just get their names here.
Kick it up a notch. Yeah, I do.
SimilarWeb. This they put out late last year. Social media referrals to top 100 news sites, which I would say likely goes to why a lot of people are, or a lot less people are engaged with news compared to previous years. There is less social media referrals or people coming from social media. It's hard to know the exact reason for that. I think part of it is the, TikTok becoming more popular, but TikTok becoming a platform where it's less likely people are going to be clicking on referral links. But also, Elon Musk taking over Twitter and just completely taking it to the ground. Less people engaged on that platform, but also news links generally are less prominent on Twitter, it is tougher to find what is happening in the news on Twitter. The algorithm is completely screwed up. So all of this has combined, in addition to Facebook now. Facebook has completely shut down independent political channels. So if you're seeing this on Facebook, it's only because you went to my Facebook page, TRN show, facebook.com/TRN show, and you.
I have a Facebook page, yeah. Did anybody know I had a Facebook page? No, right? Yeah. Facebook isn't exactly like Facebook is like another social media platform that I like, at least for a difficult truth. I just don't use, and nobody really uses in terms of politics. I shut down my Facebook page 5 years ago. Yeah, I mean, like, there you go. We assumed you stopped using Facebook in college. No, nope. Like, the only reason I even have Facebook is to, like, communicate, exactly, like, with family and, but I don't use Facebook per se. Like, if you go to my personal Facebook page, if you somehow manage to find it, there hasn't been like any type of posts, comments, anything for a while now. Like, my page is just dead. It's just dead. I assume you stopped using Facebook because you're under 70. The concept of Facebook isn't really that bad. I used to like Facebook a lot. But yeah, anyways, I stopped 10 years ago. I can't even remember when's the last time like I actually posted. Like, actually posted a thing like that isn't related to the stream. Or that, like, yeah. Yeah, I personally haven't made a post in like years. Facebook is a market platform and the UI for Zynga games. I don't even use Reddit. I have a Reddit page, by the way. There isn't a Difficult Truth Reddit page. I just don't use it. There's like I literally don't use it. Come get your P2 stolen. PII? Personal investment something? I will say, like, the ads on Facebook are pretty freaking annoying. Oh, personally identifiable information. I should have known that. Come on. Shame on me. I should know that. Anyways.
You clicked the video. Facebook used to serve these videos up in your regular feed. They no longer do that. Even if you follow me, you will not see this video. So Facebook has completely shut down all, at the very least, independent news. It's possible they have gone even further than that, but actually in Canada, they have gone further. In Canada, due to a recent law that forced big tech giants like Facebook to pay into media that they are boosting on Facebook, they have decided to completely shut down news on Facebook. So Facebook and Instagram, you can't even link to any news sites. You can't view any news pages on Facebook. On Instagram, if you try in Canada, if you try to post a link to a news page from an Instagram story, for example, it won't let you. So they have just completely shut down the ability to share any news at all on Facebook. All of this has combined, I think, to lead to what we're seeing here, just less people engaged with news through social media.
When you write, your tone influences how readers respond. With Grammarly, just highlight your text and type how you want to sound. Get your message right.
And some examples here. So this was, by the way, this is based off 100 news sites. So some of the news sites here, like Forbes, HuffPost, LA Times, New York Times, Politico, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal. If you look at the green, which is last year, it is down across the board. So compared to every previous year in every site, except for maybe Oregon Live, which may be a little up over the previous year, but every other news site is seeing a lot less traffic referred from social networks. And again, I think that goes to the what's been going on with TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook. And in addition to that, less people are engaged through cable news. So cable news ratings are also down considerably between November 2023 and January.
Yeah, this is not surprising. Not surprising at all. Facebook is useless. I mean, like, if you go to my, like, profile, like, even my videos, like, got, not demonetized, but, like, you know, I used to actually host the same stream on my Facebook page. Red Drezzy, have you been okay? It's been a while since I've caught your stream. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Thank you.
24 compared to 2019 and 2020. Although, as they write here, one additional factor is that fewer households are paying for cable subscriptions now than 4 years ago. So that trend also has continued. Just less people are subscribed to cable and are opting instead just to go completely online. Social media interactions with political debates and town halls have also waned significantly. Part of that, of course, is just that this is the first time, at least in my life, that it is very clear who was winning both primaries. So you have Biden, the incumbent, the president, he's going to be the nominee. And then you have Donald Trump with the sycophants, MAGA, making up the majority of Republican voters. He's going to win that primary.
Yep.
Unless something happens health-wise, we both know who the two candidates are going to be in November. So I think that has led to less engagement with debates, with town halls. There really is no reason to tune in, knowing who is going to end up at the end of this.
Also, like, in terms of, like, engagement, like, I don't know if, like, if people just, like, feel this way across the board, but, like, essentially, like, I've gotten to the point where, like, the reason why we, in my personal opinion, the reason why I've disengaged in terms of, like, actively going out and arguing with people in other like social media platforms, or like arguing on the comments. I very rarely do that. It's because like I've gotten to the point where like at this point I've been doing this for years, and I just can't argue with people coming from a position of like delusion. There's no other way of describing it, right? Like it's like I've said this before. It's like arguing with a flat earther. I just don't know if there's even a point to that. Heat with the I was gonna say heat with the 420, heat with the 10 biddies. Thank you, I appreciate that. It's completely pointless. It kind of is. If you're arguing with like effectively flat earthers, like, yeah, it kind of is, especially if they don't want to change, especially if they're not there to be open-minded. Like we're not having a conversation, right? Yeah, it has to have a basis in reality. And like as the years have gone by, like the conservative movement, the conservatives have become more and more and more detached from reality. So people, not just myself, but I think that, a lot of people just don't want to engage with that. I mean, you could see like people like, oh my God, I don't want, there's no point in talking to like, these people. I wish I could give you 420 bits. Thank you.
Which is one of their sources here, also acknowledges that engagement may have shifted from platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and X to other platforms like TikTok that are less suitable for links to news sites, as I was saying. So less engagement generally. It's of course, this is on my part completely anecdotal, but I have seen less engagement on independent news channels, and even in some cases, bigger news channels like CNN, MSNBC. I've just noticed that the interest is not there the way that it once was. Now, that also depends on the story, and it depends on how certain news is framed, what the titles of things are. But generally, there appears to be less engagement with news and politics, especially. And I totally, completely understand that. I often feel like if I wasn't doing this on a full-time basis, if this wasn't my job, I would not be following this. I would, of course, still be engaged in certain issues. I would, what the far right-wing government in Israel is doing with the support of like the US, Canada, the UK, is one story that people are paying attention to, even according to this article. That's like one of the outliers here. But apart from that, it's tough to engage in a lot of this, also because people have their own problems, right? Like this, especially, it really feels like since the pandemic, things have gotten tougher in a variety of ways for people, whether it's health issues or whether it's just they lost their job or they're not making enough to survive. They have other things on their mind that occupy them. Why do they want to go online and then feel even more anxiety, more depression over what is happening in the world? So I totally get people
that's true too,
disengaging from news, from politics, but this is also a potential worry for the general election. When people are less engaged, they're less likely to turn out for an election. And I think that is going to be the case in November. And ultimately, low turnout tends to benefit conservatives because there is a built-in base that are going to come out and vote no matter what. Again, a lot of them sycophants, these mega chuds, they're going to come out and vote because that's what they do. They vote every time. Whereas the Democratic Party, they need to rely more on people who don't normally vote to come out and vote to win elections. Young people in particular is a big piece of that. And with the amount of people that Joe Biden is losing with his support of the far right-wing government of Israel, that is going to continue to be an issue for him. He needs young people to win, and he's simply not going to get them. But I'm going off on a tangent here. So this is just, you're one of the good ones coming here to to watch this video all the way through about the news. But I applaud you. At the same time, I would likely not be one of you if this wasn't my job.
True. Again, disengagement is by design. I think, yeah, definitely. Who have to work or go to class. Yep, that's true. You know, I wasn't going to click on the video, but, you know, I had to. At the end of the day, I caved. Now we get warm fuzzies. Well, let's turn our attention to Florida. One of us. Florida Supreme Court to hear pivotal battle over abortion. The Florida abortion rights groups are heading to the state Supreme Court this week as part of their effort to put abortion protections on the ballot in November. Pay attention, folks. The court will hear arguments Wednesday, tomorrow, about whether the ballot measure language meets the state rules. The final hurdle to clear before the question can be put up to voters. It needs to issue a ruling by April 1st. Oh, David's accolades did it for me. Good feelings gone. Well, maybe. Supporters have already gathered enough signatures to qualify for the ballot, and the State Division of Elections officially designated as Amendment 4 pending the Supreme Court review. If successful, the measure could undo the state's abortion ban and would be a significant blow to Ron DeSantis and conservative legislators who have tightened the rules to make it more difficult for groups to launch successful ballot measures. Folks, pay attention if you live in Florida, if you know somebody that lives in Florida. Pay attention. This is a chance. Okay? So far, every single abortion measure when it comes to leaving it up to the voters, these ballot measures, ballot initiatives, state constitutional amendments, whatever you want to call it, have all won. So if you know somebody in Florida or live in Florida, let's not break that streak, okay? Let's not break that streak. If it can be done in one of the most ruby red states, it can be done in Florida. Florida is one of the handful of red and purple states where groups are pushing to get measures on the ballot in 2024 that would protect access to abortion, following a streak of wins for similar measures in Kansas and Ohio. Florida currently bans abortions after 15 weeks. 15 weeks of pregnancy. It also prohibits abortions at 6 weeks, though that law has not yet been enacted. Abortion right advocates are confident that the measure will make it on the ballot, and legal experts say the topic shouldn't matter. The court is only supposed to consider whether the question is about a single subject or whether the language accurately describes what the amendment will do. But the court is extremely conservative and openly hostile to abortion. 5 of the 7 Supreme Court justices were appointed by DeSantis, and in a separate case, they appeared to poised to uphold the 15-week ban. Attorney General Ashley Moody, Republican, launched an aggressive fight against the measure, along with anti-abortion groups who will argue that the ballot language is unclear and misleading, and the court should disqualify it. If approved, the language on the ballot would read, in part, no law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion before viability or when necessary to protect the patient's health, as determined by the patient's healthcare provider. Yeah. Because there shouldn't be any government involvement when it comes to making a decision with regards to your body. It's just that simple. In her initial brief filed at the end of October, Moody said the amendment was an attempt to hoodwink voters into approving a framework that would allow essentially unrestricted abortion. The ballot summary is part of a similar overall design to lay ticking time bombs that will enable abortion proponents later to argue that the amendment has a much broader meaning than the voters would have ever thought. Moody specifically took issue with the words healthcare provider, viability, and health. But didn't take, but these conservatives don't take umbrage when it comes to vague terms like medical emergency or life-threatening, life-threatening circumstances. According to Moody, hey, come back. What is it? Stop trying to offer me hats. According to Moody, yeah, exactly, nitpicking. Viability can have more than one meaning. What? Yeah, they really want me to buy this hat. I'm not going to buy that hat, okay? I don't even wear those type of hats. Not going to happen. Viability can have more than one meaning. No, it can't. What? And backers will push for even looser abortion rules. Moody wrote the amendment's language to give healthcare providers the power to decide both what constitutes viability. Yeah. What are you talking about? Who's going to decide? Like, who decides viability? Your healthcare professional, right? Like, wouldn't it be your doctor that can be like, oh, wow, this is a non-viable fetus. We're going to need to perform this like medical procedure. Who do you think makes this determination? And this is so absurd. Both constitutes the power to decide both what constitutes viability of a pregnancy and whether the health of a pregnant person justified a late-term abortion. Well, yeah, then who do you want making these decisions? Like that, isn't that the whole purpose of the healthcare professional or the health provider? If the doctor is saying that you need an abortion because something went, horribly wrong, and now the fetus is not viable and your health is in danger, that's the only person that needs to be making that. That's the person that's treating you right now. What are you talking about? Like, who else is going to make this decision? Like, this is absurd. The fact that, like, anybody with a straight face could literally say, like, well, I think that there's a problem, that, the health provider, the doctors would have the power to decide what what constitutes viability and whether the health of the pregnant person justifies a late-term abortion. That's just absurd. That just can't be. What? In a later brief, she added that, oh look, the gun holsters to go with the hats that I was just offered. In a late brief, she added that if the court chooses to approve the amendment, it should make clear that the legislature, executive, and judiciary retain their traditional constitutional roles in defining and enforcing viability of health and health. Wait a minute. Since when was that a thing? Like, are we really arguing that the only people who can make these determinations are literally the politicians, not the doctors? Wow. But in a brief supporting the amendment, a group of former Republican officials led by ex-Lieutenant Governor Jennifer Carroll said the state was asking the court to impose a much higher bar for review than any other ballot measure to date. The power of the people to decide for themselves and what their fundamental laws should be is so valued in Florida that the courts exercise extreme restraint before blocking citizen initiatives from reaching Floridians. Whether one supports abortion is irrelevant. The constitutionally protected citizens' initiative process should move forward, and the initiative should reach the people as the U.S. Supreme Court in Dobbs suggested, so that the people themselves can decide this issue. The Supreme Court review of a ballot measure is standard procedure in Florida, and oral arguments are common if the state opposes it. Lauren Parenzo, the campaign director for Floridians Protecting Freedom, the primary coalition behind the abortion amendment, noted that the Attorney General's office filed a challenge against a host of recent ballot measures, including recreational marijuana, restoring voting rights to former felons, and increasing the minimum wage. Yeah, cool. All of them made it past the Supreme Court review and were passed by voters. Which kind of tells you something, doesn't it? If you look at our language, it is written to be read by an 8th grader and is written to use words that are familiar with people that have definitions in Florida statutes. So all are political arguments more than they are legal arguments. And I think it shows that the state is having to do some mental gymnastics to even talk about the ways in which this language should be thrown out. Because the reality is this language is ready for voters. Even with the 15-week ban, Florida has become a haven for women seeking abortion from other states with even stricter laws. That's why it's so essential that the measure to protect abortion make it to the ballot, Renzel said, because the specter of a 6-week ban is looming. If access to care is lost in Florida, the implications of that will be devastating. There will be nowhere feasible for 78,000 patients to go. We're just hoping that we can see real respect for the Constitution and constituents in the state of Florida coming out of this process. Well, folks, if this bill gets green-lighted, it's important that, again, if you know somebody in Florida, spread the word. If you know somebody or live in Florida, that this will be on the ballot should it get the green light from the state Supreme Court. This is where important things can happen. Winners. I read whiners. All right, folks, we did it. Folks, if you enjoy the content, don't forget, please hit the follow button. It really does help us out. Go on the YouTubes if you haven't done so. If you are on the YouTubes, don't forget, subscribe, like the stream, do all the awesome stuff. Also, make sure you spread the word. Bring a friend. We are here Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, make sure you join the Discord, okay? Lots of cool stuff. Again, every last Saturday of the month, there's a movie night. So if you want to participate, just join the Discord. Check out the merch store. You know, I appreciate all the support. You guys are what makes this channel grow. I appreciate the biddies, the follows, the subscriptions, everything. You guys are what makes this channel grow. I appreciate all of you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, movie night, Mouselander. Welcome. You guys are what makes this channel grow. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Michael Hasser, for keeping the chat chill. Thank you all for joining. I appreciate it. Again, we'll be here tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. You missed the show. That's right, but maybe they were in the background lurking. See ya.
Lies
All right, folks, hang tight. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.